5 years ago, Avengers Age of Ultron was released in the United States on May 1st, 2015. This was perhaps one of the most polarizing films in the entire MCU due to a number of different reasons. Last week I made a part 1 of this video where I focused on the good aspects of this movie, and this is a continuation to that. This is part 2 of my Avengers Age of Ultron rewatch in 2020, where I will mainly talk about the faults and problems with this movie. However, if you have not checked out the previous video yet, then I will definitely request you to give it a watch first and then come back to this part 2, as I think despite all the problems, this movie doesn't deserve so much hatred. Either way, now with all that said and done, let's begin with today's video. So my name is Soham and welcome to WhyZ, and today we are revisiting Avengers Age of Ultron in 2020, discussion part 2. So I feel like this movie had two major issues along with several minor problems everywhere. The first one is the villain himself Ultron, and second is the overall plot. I'll begin with Ultron. Ultron is one of my all-time favorite Marvel villains from the comics. Its creation and lore is really interesting and thought-provoking at the very same time. And because I'm a fan of its comic interpretation, so I was kind of disappointed with him in the movies, especially because of the lack of Hank Pym. Now I know that the MCU takes a lot of liberties and changes its plot from the comics to suit its own agenda, and overall this has been quite a huge success. But the portrayal of Ultron was a big disappointment for me, because even though he is the central villain of the movie, but still he is quite sidelined and ignored from the main narrative. Even though the name of the movie is Age of Ultron, but still we don't see a menacing presence from Ultron himself. And the word age itself becomes an oxymoron. Because for the most part, the movie tries to focus on setting up future events like introducing Vision for the Mind Stone, introducing Wakanda, introducing the Maximoff Twins, sowing the seeds for Civil War, and so on and so forth. In the midst of all this, Ultron is kind of forgotten. And as the name of the movie suggests, his sort of menacing presence is really not present at all. I'm not saying that setting up future events is wrong. I really loved the post-credits scene with Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet. That was set up done right. Hell, even Tony and Steve's slow fall off was fine, but rest of the setup is quite unnecessary, annoying, and outright stupid. I really don't know, or I really don't understand how Marvel felt that sacrificing their main villain for the movie would be somehow beneficial. Due to all this, Ultron really feels like a second fiddle to the plot. It never really seems like Ultron is a big threat for the team. And that definitely is not an Age of Ultron, it's much rather a week of Ultron at most. It would have been much better if more time was given to him, like him taking over the Earth for a longer period of time, where he obviously had control over the internet and in turn the entire world. Then his terror reign would feel a lot more worthy of the Age of Ultron title, a literal age of harsh times. But instead, not only do we make him quite weak in this movie, but rather his motivations for the annihilation of humans is quite weak. If more time was spent to develop his ideology, then I'm sure that the end product would have been a lot better. Also, here I'd like to talk about one particular thing in regards to the portrayal of Ultron, and that is how the YouTube channel, how it should have ended, portrayed Ultron. That was on point and perfect. Moreover, it would have properly signified what exactly the character of Ultron was, at least in the context of this movie. It would have made him a legitimate threat that terrified the entire world. Anyway, I agree with what he shows. That is, since Ultron is basically an internet AI gone rogue, he can manipulate and destroy the Avengers in a much more effective manner, rather than just throwing Sokovia away. His terror tactics would have been genuinely interesting for a thriller. He could have easily toyed with the humanity because of our excessive dependence on the internet. He could have launched nuclear missiles against opposing countries. He could have brought forth worldwide blackout by manipulating machinery all over the world. He could have destroyed the economy and reduced the stock market to ashes. We briefly see something similar to this in the movie when he manipulates the internet and transfers millions of dollars to Claw in exchange for vibranium. He did this feat in a matter of couple of seconds. If the movie expanded this ability further, then it would have been so much cooler. Just imagine if Ultron made Tony Stark and the entire SHIELD bankrupt. That would have made Ultron so much more menacing and terrifying. and it would have validated the Hawkeye farmhouse scene in a much better sense, because now they definitely needed a place to lie low. The world would have quickly fallen into the hands of anarchy and chaos, and after a couple of months, the Avengers would have finally been able to get their revenge on Ultron. That would have actually captured the terrifying Age of Ultron instead of the Week of Ultron which we get in the movie. Also, let's talk a little about the incoherent plot of this movie. This movie tries to fit in a lot more information than it could have actually handled. From setups for the Infinity Stones and Thanos to Civil War rivalries and so on, and in the process it sacrifices its main villain. And don't get me wrong, I quite enjoy this movie for what it is, but it's such a shame because this movie could have been so much better. Also, like I said in the part 1 video, this movie has some of the best action scenes in the entire MCU, but the focus quickly and abruptly shifts between big action set pieces and tender character moments. There is no bridge or connecting link that mends the gap between these two stark set pieces of the movie, and thankfully, the MCU has learned to incorporate this in its newer works. But here, the issue is certainly eye-grating because of the incoherent plot. Now, these were my main problems with this particular movie, and like I said, there are many more minor problems as well. But I don't want to be too negative about this movie today, because at the end of the day, I quite enjoy watching this movie even with all its flaws. And maybe Infinity War and Endgame would not have been so much enjoyable had this movie not made the setups properly. So I guess watching this movie in 2020, I can give it a pass. And it's clearly not the worst movie in the entire MCU. I would once again like to request everyone to watch part 1 of this video where I talk about the good things that this movie did, because many people don't appreciate this movie for what it was. Nevertheless, the movie suffered a lot because of its villain problems, incoherent plot, bad dialogues and everything surrounding the Maximoff twins. I mean, I love X-Men and I love the characters of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. So it was really disappointing for me to see them in this particular avatar. I mean, I understand that the Fox deals didn't happen then, so they had to introduce the characters in some other way. Fine, but what the hell, Marvel? You killed Quicksilver in the very movie he was introduced in. That's just sheer disrespectful. Okay, now that the Fox deals have been done, I just hope that something good happens to the character of Quicksilver. So anyway, that was my opinion on this particular movie. Now I have talked about both the good as well as bad aspects of this movie. So that's it for today guys, thank you so much for watching this part 2 video. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe to the channel for more. This is WhyZ and I'll see you soon in the next video.